Hello and good morning, everyone. Only Positivity here. No coffee today. I'm having some trouble sleeping over the past couple weeks. So what I'm trying to do is not drink coffee in the afternoon. So I just been doing my cups of coffee in the morning. So right now I got with me a sparkling bitch, a little LaCroix action. So let me pop that open. A little ASMR action on you. But in any case, I'm looking to kick off podcast number 51 on this playlist that I'm looking to launch called Elevated Thoughts. So, as I endeavor upon pursuing knowledge and life experience in this next phase of life through fitness, photography, cannabis, reading, traveling, many more things. One habit that I've really formed is, and it sounds a little bit lame, but watching movies and watching artistic creations and things of that sort, and really diving into them and evaluating them and talking about them, historical pieces and things like that. So, so this podcast today is essentially going to go through one of my favorite TV shows. But before we jump into that, let's go and start with a brief story, if you can call it that, for today. So, just the other day, I was playing this card game with one of my buddies, and I've actually played it growing up in Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and things of that sort. It's called Egyptian Rat Screw or Egyptian Rat Slap. Now, it's a really competitive game. You play with your standard 52 card deck, right? You deal them all out to however many players are playing. And there's a lot of different rules people make up. But the main one that we'll play with is this thing called doubles or sandwiches, right? So it's mainly like if you have a 2, a 5, and a 2, that's a sandwich, you slap it. And then whatever's underneath that is yours. And the person with the most cards at the end of the game wins, who collects all the cards, I guess, right? So, so that's sandwiches, and then there's doubles. So if you see like a 2 and a 2, you slap. And then there's the face cards have different, they have different uses in the game, right? So a king is where if one puts down a king, the other player next up gets 3 chances to put down another face card, which is an ace, king, queen, jack. Queen is 2 chances, jack is 1 chance to get another face card, ace is 4 chances, right? So just the other day I was playing, and me and my buddy were the last 2 in it, and we're going hard, right? We're really focused, watching the deck come down, all the cards come out, and I'm on my last card, right? I'm about to lose this game. And then my last card's a face card. I get back in the game and I win that shit. So to my buddy who's listening, I just want to give a quick shout out to you. It was a pleasure spanking that ass, my friend. But we'll play again. But I would highly recommend anyone play that game. It's fun at a party. It's fun with close friends. It really forces you to be focused. Brings out that competitive edge. So. Anyway, usually on a Friday, you can catch me clowning, playing some Egyptian Rat Screw, maybe a little chess, some Uno probably. There's this other game we're playing called Old Maid, which is a really fun game, but I'll go into that probably in another podcast. So yeah, board games, card games, man. I feel like all that stuff is making a resurgence, and it's a nice breath of fresh air to like actually get to know somebody else, see their idiosyncrasies and their mannerisms, the way they public speak. And just kind of put down the phone, put down the remote, the video games for a little bit. There's always time for that in the evening, dude. But I feel like if I play video games for too long, I just get like really zonked out. Not that I don't enjoy them, man. I really do enjoy video games, but after too many hours of playing video games, I'm over it. So in any case, we'll come back to the topic for today. So. For those of you that watch it, I feel like people who do watch this show are very obsessed with it, but maybe not. So the show we're going to go through is Peaky Blinders. So you're going to hear me throw out a lot of references in my other podcasts and things like that about Peaky Blinders. I love the characters in it. So it's directed by Stephen Knight. And he's a really good director, I'd say. Does a really great job with this show. Main character is Cillian Murphy. He plays Tommy Shelby. So what I thought I'd do is, I really love talking about the nuances of this show with other people who are really interested in it, right? So me and a lot of my close guy friends are interested in it. but going above and beyond, the events that happen, thinking about the time period, right? So the show takes place post World War One, around that 1919 era. I think in the first season and the fifth season, the most recent is takes place in, I think, 1929 maybe, so or 1926, somewhere around that era. So it spans the year of a decade for the most part. So in any case, I figured I'd just break it down, right? So each season has about 6 episodes, and they're each an hour long. So it's a pretty quick series, to watch if you want to knock it out. But I figured I'd go through it season by season and maybe just have a dialogue about, not only the events, but maybe some of the symbolism behind it, some of the historical significance to the events in there, and just maybe talk about the acting. Because I think every single actor in this show does a great job of getting their point across, of making it convincing, right? None of us were around, or I wasn't around in 1919. So from the history that I've read, this is obviously an over dramatization, but Peaky Blinders does stem from an actual gang. I mean, at least what I've Googled, researched, and whatnot. So it does stem from a real gang that was around, right? A gang of young boys that was around in Birmingham around that post World War One era. So that being said, we're gonna just go ahead and dive into it. We're gonna start with episode 1. So episode 1 starts with Thomas Shelby. He is going through this part of Birmingham, a rather poor part, and you can tell because the people walking around, their clothes are tattered. They have dirt on their face, right? So the director does a really good job of showing you that these people are in fact impoverished, and they're in poverty, right? And then we talk about just the area, right? Birmingham, that on the outskirts of Birmingham, I'm assuming, even where the Blinders live, there's people, it's coal everywhere, outhouses, people have their clothes hanging on lines, it's very dark, very, charcoal everywhere, it seems like. So right off the bat, you can tell Tommy's pulling up in a poor area. So another, symbol of stature is that Tommy pulls up on a horse, and he has a girl from Chinatown, and kind of like her handler, this Asian dude. They roll into this lane where all these poor people are watching behind these curtains and whatnot, and he is essentially having this Asian girl supposedly tell fortunes, right? So she's known for this, and she does this powder trick on the horse, and essentially what that's set to do is give it good luck, right? So what that means to me is times are hard, in post World War One, especially for these poor people in Birmingham. So they need something to bet on, right? They need a reason to bet, right? That they have such little funds that the little funds they do have, if they're gonna bet it on a horse, it has to be convincing. They have to have a reason why. So hence the reason for the powder trick. So in any case, we go to the first interaction, where we meet Arthur back in the betting shop. So Tommy pulls up to the betting shop, and Arthur is the supposed head of the family, or so it seems at the time, because he's the oldest, right? He looks the oldest, and he puts on this air of a brute, right? He doesn't really have too much depth in the way that he thinks, and he's very surface level, and very impulsive and reactive. So a first step here is that even though Arthur is the head of the family, you can tell that Tommy is the brains of the family, because Arthur doesn't really understand why Tommy does the powder trick. But Tommy tells him that he does the powder trick so that people will bet. And then Arthur's kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So Tommy's more forward thinking, and he's more strategic, and he's in charge of, quote unquote, drumming up new business for the family. And then John, the third brother, is introduced, right? And he's the youngest. I mean, next to Finn, but Finn is like a baby. So Arthur is the oldest, Tommy's the middle child, and then John's the youngest. But John is the order taker, right? He's like the soldier or the muscle. And what happens is they get a call, or there's a report, that there's news from Belfast, and that an inspector has come to Birmingham, and the Peaky Blinders, they don't know why yet, right? There's a lot of things going on in Birmingham. It's 1919. There's communists around. There's the IRA, right, the Irish Republican Army, who are considered outlaws, and then there's the Peaky Blinders, right, all committing quote unquote illegal acts. So they're like, hey, he could be coming for any reason here, right? So we don't want to worry about it. So we flash to another great the antagonist in this show for the first season, Inspector Campbell. He's coming to Birmingham from probably Belfast, right, on a train, and he has pictures of all the brothers in this portfolio that he's looking at while he's sitting on the train, and he sees that Arthur Shelby, Tommy Shelby, John Shelby, they were all soldiers for the English army in World War One. And Tommy, in fact, won war medals. He's a decorated war hero, and we'll find more about that, as time goes on. So in any case, they find he's reading these profiles, and then in comes Freddie Thorne. So Freddie Thorne is a communist agitator, and he is Tommy's good friend since they were young kids, since they were childhood friends. And he actually saved Tommy's life in Germany, or in France, during World War One, when all these men were tunnelers, right? So they were underneath the ground. They were living in mud literally all day long, and they were attempting to find routes underneath the ground to penetrate, the German establishments or the German holdings and things like that. So in any case, we're talking about Inspector Moss. So he's here to apparently investigate something, right? So all we know right now is that he is interested in the Peaky Blinders, even though at that point they don't know he is. So then you introduce the Garrison, and that is a staple of this show, right? So the Garrison at the time is a pub, right? And it's a spot where the Peaky Blinders will gather, and they'll have drinks and they'll talk about things. There's a private room in the back where they can discuss some more important matters, or some of their family matters related to business or illegal activity, whatever. So they don't own the pub, but Tommy and Freddie are there, and they're having a nice little dialogue, right? So we know that Freddie saved Tommy's life in France, and then they're having this very sarcastic dialogue with each other, and in comes Danny Whizbang. So Danny Whizbang is part of the Peaky Blinders, or not yet, but he's someone that Tommy looks out for, and he's a shell-shocked soldier. So he has major PTSD, and he has these fits, right, where he thinks that there's German infantry after him, and he is running around scared, and he is very violent, and he comes and he's throwing tables around, and Tommy and Freddie have to take him down and put him on the ground and ensure him that everything's okay, right? So then we have Polly Gray, who comes in, right? Aunt Paul, and she's one of the best characters on the show. Either great actress. Sorry. So she points a gun at John, who is walking around the corner, and John is startled. Right, he's immediately shook, and he's like, "Why are you pointing that gun at me, Aunt Paul?" And she's like, "Look at it. Take a look at it." And it's actually John's gun, and he left it on a side table or something like that at the betting shop and fell asleep drunk or something like that. And John has like a bunch of kids running around, and that's why he's like can't keep track of anything. So essentially, this dude must not know how to pull out or something, and he is just going in on all these different women, or his wife died or something like that, and he has a bunch of kids, and they're running him around, right, because he's accountable for them, and he just can't take care of them. So that there's a first sign of John having too much on his plate, and Polly's kind of like, get your shit together, man. Figure it out. Because if a kid picks this up, if Finn picks this up, and something bad happens, that's on you, John. Right? So, Arthur ends up calling a family meeting because he is worried about this inspector. Right? He knows that Irishmen are going to come to the city and try to clean it up. And inspector so the family meeting's called, right? They're gonna have it later, whatever. Tommy says there's nothing to worry about still, even though you can tell there's something else on his mind. He's scheming, and that's a staple of Tommy. He's always scheming. He doesn't know how to sit still. So Inspector Campbell gets off the train. He hops on a cab, right? So he gets on the cab, and he's driving around, and they're panning around Birmingham, right? There's people throwing up in the streets because they're drunk. There's like dudes having sex in the middle of the street. There's this one dude who comes up to his cab and goes, "Bleh," and it's like, all right, that's a little much, but yeah. So it's just right. The symbol is here, or the point of this all is Birmingham is corrupt, and that's what he's trying to come and clean up. So what you find out is that Inspector Campbell has come to Birmingham for a reason, maybe, right? And Tommy and Paulie have this very intense chat in the church where Tommy confesses that he had hired some men to steal some motorcycles or motorcycle parts from this from the BSA factory, right? A manufacturing spot, an import export spot where a lot of goods come through to be distributed in England and whatnot. So his men drop off the cargo or whatever they stole at Charlie's yard, and that's Tommy's uncle, and it's supposed to be these motorcycle parts. So they open it, right, and they realize there's a bunch of machine guns. And at that time, machine guns were not really a thing. It was mostly single bolt action guns. So machine guns were like, latest technology at the time. And all these rounds of ammunition, pistols, all these, like a bunch of guns, and he says, all right, well, what the fuck? So so now he's gonna keep it, right? And Polly's pissed. Polly's like, yo, that's why they brought the copper down here. Like, this is gonna fuck us up, man. We can't handle something like this, So in any case, she pretty much starts hitting him in the church, and Tommy's taking it. But then Tommy says, you know what? I will have Charlie just dump this back in the river or drop it off somewhere when there's a full moon or when there's not a full moon out, because Charlie won't move contraband on full moon. And he says, all right, you know what? I'll do the right thing and I'll let it go. Right? So, right at this time, Tommy's agreed to get rid of the guns, even though they fell into his lap. Right? So, Ada is the only family's daughter or sister, right? All the rest are men. There's Aunt Pole and there's Ada at this time, right? So Ada is Tommy, Arthur, and John's sister. So Ada is actually dating Freddie, right? And so that's Tommy's friend who's a communist. So Tommy and him really aren't like on good terms because communism is really opposite of what Tommy is all about right now in terms of his business. So they're kind of like, feuding and things like that. And Tommy and Freddie aren't on good terms. And for Freddie to be dating his sister, that's some uncharted territory. That's some dangerous ground right there. So Tommy would never approve of this, right? So they're always moving around in secret, and so that whole plot line is posed right there. And then in comes Grace, right? So Grace, from the start, is very suspicious, and they do a great job. So Stephen Knight has, the first time you meet Grace, she's walking to the pub dressed as a sophisticated lady. She's wearing this very vibrantly green outfit, and she does look like a lady, right? She looks out of place almost. I think that's the point, right? So she looks around all the garbage and the shit in Birmingham. There's just like nice, elegant thing walking through. So she enters the Garrison looking for a job, and the pub owner is like, I don't know if you want to get a job here. And essentially it's because everyone who comes in is either the Peaky Blinders, who are known for like cutting out people's tongues and gouging people's eyes out if they oppose them, and then there's like war veterans who are always getting fucked up all day. So it's like, why would you want to be here, right? Being as posh as you're looking right now. So essentially, she's just like, I want to be here, and like she kind of like poses it that she's like, yo, I was trying to get away from something. Let me just have this job, dude. All right, just back the fuck up. So in any case, he gives her the job, right? So that's squared away. So Arthur is the first of the brothers that Inspector Campbell interrogates, right? So Arthur is at the movies, or there's a movie about to start, and he is just removed by the cops. And so the next time they flash to him, he's all bloody, and Inspector Campbell comes in, and he actually breaks Arthur's thumb. And at this time, Arthur finds out that Inspector Campbell's looking for the guns. And he's not after the IRA. He's not after the communists or anything like that. He's after the guns. He wants to recover them. And Winston Churchill and the King have assigned Inspector Campbell this task. And they assigned him this task because he drove the IRA out of Belfast. And he is known for being ruthless and gruesome. And he tortures and beats people to get what he wants, right? So that he's here for it. He tells Arthur that, but Arthur doesn't know that Tommy has a gun, that the Blinders have the guns, right? So Inspector Campbell actually lets him go because he's like, I don't see anything in your eyes that indicates to me that you have the guns, right? So that whole thing happens. Arthur comes back and says, look, we can, the inspector asked me to keep an eye out for him. We can do that. And Tommy's still lying at this point, but he registers that Inspector Campbell is after these guns, right? So then now you flash to a scene where you find out how Tommy is dealing with his PTSD, right? So everyone deals differently, right? You see John or Arthur drinks a bunch, right? And they all do. They all drink a whole bunch. John has his own ways, right, of dealing with his PTSD. Danny Whizbang is obviously shell-shocked. So you see Tommy's first way, right? So he's sleeping, and he's sleeping in this rundown apartment on Watery Lane, and it flashes to a quick scene of them as tunnelers, right? And they're slowly hitting a wall where if they penetrate this wall, they're going to be into like a German building or German territory, right? So they hear picks on the other side of the wall, and that's the German tunnelers, right? So it's very silent, and then they bust through, and the Germans are attacking them. Tommy gets stabbed or shot or something, and then Freddy kind of saves him. So it's like you don't get the full picture, but you get a glimpse of Tommy's PTSD there. And Tommy even uses hash at the time to fall asleep, and it's like this old busted ass wooden pipe. Puts a little hash in the carb hole, or not the carb hole, the bowl, and just kind of lights it. And I'm like, hey man, dude, it will help with your sleep 100%. So yeah. In any case, you then flash forward to Danny Whizbang having an episode in the Italian part of town, right? So he's sitting on a table outside of a restaurant, and the owner comes out and is like, hey, what's going on? And he's speaking Italian. Danny's speaking English, can't understand him. And then the guy says, hey, crazy man, go away. And he pulls out a knife, right? So then Danny Whizbang's like, oh, fix bayonets, fucking shell-shocked as fuck, and stabs the guy, right? And kills him. And there's two Italian, mob-looking dudes that they pan to, and you can tell that they're connected, right? So another storyline about to emerge here. So then you flash to a scene where Inspector Campbell is chatting with Winston Churchill, and Winston Churchill is giving him the exact remit. Here is what you can do, here's what you can't do, but I need you to get those guns back for me, right? So then you flash forward to a scene with Tommy and Uncle Charlie at the yard. So Uncle Charlie has loaded up the guns, ready to dump them, and then Tommy goes, nope, put them in the wharf and keep them out of the damp or whatever, right? So Charlie's like, what? We said we're gonna dump these, and he's like, no. He's like, if Luck drops something in your lap, you don't just throw it in the cut, right? So he's planning to do something with it, and he's like, if they want the guns this bad, they're gonna have to pay for it now, right? And Charlie's all, dude, have you fucking gone crazy? Like, they've sent a whole army down here to get these shits. And he's like, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll take care of the rest. Just drop it at the wharf, right? Curly knows where it is. And Curly is kind of like this, simpleton that is part of the Peaky Blinders, and they kind of look after him, right? And I think it goes to show that the Peaky Blinders, they're not racial, right? They don't discriminate, because in war, color doesn't matter, right? Anyone who's loyal, who has those qualities, is okay to us, right? They have this black guy, Jeremiah, who's a pastor, and they fought in France together, right? Then you see Curly, so they're quote unquote not bad men. They just kind of do bad things, I guess, right? So then you now see Grace, who's worked at the bar for a little bit, and her and Tommy are having like these back and forths. They're looking at each other. There's some tension there. So she goes to a museum, and then Inspector Campbell shows up there, and you can tell that they're working together, right? So she is an undercover agent working for Inspector Campbell, and Inspector Campbell and her father were good friends, and her father was murdered by an IRA member, and you can tell that is kind of her reasoning for joining the force. Like, she wants to take some revenge on the people who killed her father. But little does she know, she's there to fuck with the Peaky Blinders. So in any case, she tells Inspector Campbell, who interrogated Arthur, that it's actually Tommy who is the leader of the family, right? So he's like, okay, I realized I didn't talk to the right person, So you can tell he's about to set up some time with Tommy, okay? So then that ends episode 1, right? So that's season 1, episode 1. So we jump into season 2, right? So in season 2, it starts with the brothers. The 3 brothers are in a car, right? And it's a time where cars were just invented. So to have a car was a sign of affluence again. So they go to the country to buy a horse from the Lee family, and they're a big part of this whole show, but season 1, right? And then so you first meet Johnny Dogs, and Johnny Dogs is the fucking man, dude. He's like this roaming presence. He's a gypsy. He's always like kind of like getting into shit, but he likes to sing and dance. He's like a jokester, right? But he's a loyal compatriot of the Peaky Blinder family and the Shelby family. So they end up going there to buy a horse, but they end up fighting with the Lee families, right? And Tommy does everything for a reason, so even that was for a reason, right? So they end up having like this huge fight with the family. The 3 brothers pretty much beat the shit out of the other 3 Lee brothers, and they take off with a horse, but they also take off their hats that have razor blades in them, and that's why they call them the Peaky Blinders. And Tommy slashes one of them with them, right? So cuts him open and everything, and yeah, so a little bit of ruthlessness. You can see Tommy has that devil inside of him, and he fights with that. So we flash forward to a scene where Inspector Campbell is putting together these raids, right, on all the Peaky Blinders areas, and they also are trying to get Freddy and Communist if they can in the meantime, right? So the whole time, what's happening is when they conduct one of these raids, Freddy has to leave town, okay, and because they're in this area doing raids where Freddy and Ada are actually having sex and shit, and they're doing it. So as they're conducting this raid, they find a prescription in Freddy's room for Ada Shelby, right? And so essentially what Inspector Moss says to Tommy is that, hey, look, we'll charge your sister with Freddy, and she will do time in jail if you don't take care of Freddy as well, right? So and they can't let they can't let Ada, go to jail, right? She's a Shelby, and they'll do fucking terrible things to her in jail. But Tommy finds out, he'll be pissed about this, right? So I believe Aunt Pole knows at this time. So then Inspector Campbell goes and raids the church that Polly's in, right? And obviously don't find anything in there, but he tells Polly that he wants to meet with Tommy, right? He wants to meet the head of the family. So after that, what Inspector Campbell tells everybody is that the Peaky Blinders okayed these raids, right? So trying to like kind of smash their reputation in the meantime. So then Tommy sends the two brothers out, says, hey, look, go give them some money to fix things up. Let them know that like you guys are still the ones who run shit around here, right? So at this point, Tommy is on the back foot, right? The coppers have struck. Inspector Campbell's on the offensive. So he's like, you know what? I'm not going to meet with this dude until I kind of like strike a blow back first, right? So they're playing this like chess game. So this is an interesting thing he does. So he pays everyone in Watery Lane, this area, Small Heath, to bring their picture of King George to the Watery Lane, and they had a big bonfire. They burnt their pictures of King George, and they had a reporter come and write an article on it. And that would mean that the guns potentially would get some national recognition, right? Because it involves King George. So Winston Churchill calls Inspector Campbell, and he's like, dude, this shit cannot get out. Go, just make sure you find the guns. And Inspector Campbell's like, you know what? I'm going to go down there and make some arrests. And he's like, don't make any arrests because this means word will get out and we don't need any more publicity. Just get the guns and chill out, right? And they find out that Tommy's a war hero, and they, that looks bad on the crown for kind of like fucking with a war hero, right? They just got out of World War I. People are not going to like that. So in any case, Tommy finds out that Ada is pregnant with Freddy's baby, but he's like now nowhere to be found, right? Because he had to leave town because of the raids. So then, what you find next is that Tommy receives a bullet, and this is like some gypsy way of letting you know, kind of like the Black Hand with the Italian mafia. Like they would let you know that they're gonna come to your town and kill you, which is, I guess it's quote unquote honorable, but like it's, you lose that element of surprise. So anyway, he gets a bullet with his name on it from the Lee family, and Uncle Charlie hands it to him. So that means everyone in the Lee family is going to come and try to kill you, right? He ends up not really giving too much of a fuck about that. And he later on that night goes to calm down his horse, and Curly comes to get him, and the horse actually has some kind of illness, and when a horse has an illness, you have to put it down, right? So he goes ahead and puts the horse down. He shoots it, and then you can tell he's just distraught, right? He never really shows emotion, but he's distraught after this horse is put down. He goes to the bar to drink, and he's like, you never get used to seeing a horse die. They die badly, and he thinks the Lees put a curse on it, right? So you can see that gypsy in him still present. Essentially, what do you call him? He finds out that he can kind of confide in Grace, right? He goes to the bar, and only Grace is there, and they talk a little bit, but he's being guarded. He doesn't want to tell her too much because she's not part of the family or anything like that. But you can tell she is slowly but surely making some traction with even Tommy. You know what I mean? So that's a big theme of this show. So then you find out, right? So I said Tommy finds out that Ada's pregnant with Freddy's baby, right? Or he does. I guess he doesn't know just yet. So he finds her at a movie theater, right? And she's not telling him. So he goes to the movie theater director, and they shut down the whole movie. He tells everyone to leave, and he's like, until you tell me, like, this shit's not gonna continue. So she says, hey, look, it's Freddy. Like, sorry, motherfucker, it's your best friend. That's that's it. It's Freddie Thorne's baby, and I'm gonna have it, whatever. So you find out, right, a little bit more about Freddie saving Tommy's life, but now Freddie Freddie is a communist and not really good for business for the Blinders, but he's also Ada's husband, quote unquote, and the father of their child. So he's conflicted with all of this. So then, in the first episode, we talked about that powder trick, right? So the horse's name in that powder trick was Monahan Boy. So his betting scheme was to have people bet on Monahan Boy winning, right? So they're fixing races, and that's not allowed, right? So essentially, what happens is they have people bet on Monahan Boy, he wins, right? They have him bet again on Monahan Boy, and he wins. And then finally, they have the whole city betting on Monahan Boy, right? The whole city bets on him, and then he finally loses, and they take home all this money, right? And they pay a little bit of it back, to the people out there. But it's just a sign that Tommy is forward thinking. He's always strategical in the way he does things, but it's not always ethical. So Tommy and Freddie actually meet up, right? My voice cracked, but Tommy and Freddie actually meet up, and Tommy's pointing a gun at him, right? And he's like, "Hey, look, I know you just want to get with Ada because she's a Shelby, and that'll mean that your name will gain some stature." And that's really conceited of Tommy, and it really shows that he doesn't really have too much like room for love in his heart after the war. But he finds out that Freddie actually loves Ada very much, and he's loved her for a long time, and so this leaves Tommy even more conflicted because he's like, all right, dude, whatever. He actually does love my sister, but he's actually bad because Inspector Campbell and Tommy have agreed that, they would get him out of the city, right? So it's even more conflict added. So then Polly is actually talking to Ada about getting an abortion because Freddie hasn't come back to town yet, right? And she's like, when it's right, we'll go do it, and you'll have a good husband and a man will love you, right? And Ada's like, fuck that, I'm keeping it. Don't get away from me, right? So we flash forward to this scene where Tommy's meeting Inspector Campbell at this place called Licky Tea Rooms, right? It's outside of both of their jurisdictions, so no one can get arrested. And Tommy tells the inspector his plan to make a move against Billy Kimber. Now, Billy Kimber is a third biggest racetrack owner in England, right? And he owns like legal betting pitches and things like that. And Tommy's going to take him over now, right? And he says also that he does have the guns, but I'll give you the guns once I'm done with Billy Kimber. And you just have to tell your coppers to stay off when I make my move, And Inspector Campbell was like, he's really shocked about this, but he's like, all right, this dude has the guns. If he doesn't make it too long in getting these guns to me, we should be okay, right? Inspector Campbell says, hey, look, I know your sister's involved with a communist. And Tommy said, look, let's agree, I'll get him out of town, no worries, So then after that, you can tell, so Inspector Campbell kept his cool that whole time. But then he meets up with Grace at their usual meeting spot, right? That museum. And he says, look, okay, don't focus on the IRA anymore. Don't focus on anything else. We know Tommy has a gun. I need you to focus on getting closer to him, right? And he's like, any means necessary, please, get close to him. So at the end of that episode, the horse, right? That horse that Tommy has bought that's the scene where Tommy has to put it down, and you can tell, it pains him and all that, right? So you can tell he is way more caring of animals than anything else. So Tommy, after that scene where he kills the horse, he goes to the bar and only Grace is there, and he says, hey, I looked you up. I know that you didn't work in Dublin. You're not who you say you are. Now, let me guess, right? So he says this whole story, and he says, hey, so you probably got pregnant, and the guy left you, and, that ruined your life. So you came here, and you want to start afresh. And even though that story has no sense to it, she confirms it. And she's like, all right, just please don't tell anybody, right? So then she gives him some confidence, and he thinks that he's right about Ada aborting the baby now, right? So Grace just manipulated the shit out of Tommy. So yeah, so that's how the second episode ends, right? So now, Tommy's whole plan with Billy Kimber, is to let him know, right, that the guards, right, the guys that he has guarding the racetracks are actually taking profits from the Lees, and he's losing money because of the Lee family, right? And he says he can do better. Give me an opportunity, right? So we're gonna get to that scene in a minute, but at the beginning of episode 3, Tommy tells Freddie that if he marries Ada and leaves the city, everything's gonna be all right. But then at the last minute, Freddie changes his mind and he's like, "I'm not leaving. I'm not worried about Tommy at all. I can handle him." So then comes a scene where Billy Kimber shows up to the bar with his financial advisor, right, and a couple of armed guards. So this meeting is super epic. I would highly recommend everyone watch it. So right away, Billy is very degrading to the brothers, right? He's calling them like pikey and a lot of derogatory gypsy names, and he just thinks he's a shit, right? So he tells Billy, so Tommy tells Billy that his guards are, taking profits. And the reason that he did this whole betting thing was to get Billy Kimber's attention for an opportunity, right? So in any case, Billy agrees, right? That, maybe I'll give it a shot. Meet me at the next race and we'll talk about it, right? So he says, Tommy says, hey, I'm happy to be working with you. And then Billy's all, people don't work with me. They work for me. So he throws a coin on the ground and he says, hey, pick it up. And Tommy stares him in the eyes, right? And some like very, dramatic music plays. You can tell Tommy is like, all right, motherfucker. Like when I take your ass over, it's going to be that much more sweet because you did this, right? And John or Arthur don't know anything about Tommy's plan. So Tommy goes to pick it up and John's like, what? And then he's about to go ape shit, right? And Tommy's like, sit the fuck down, right? Like don't ruin this shit. So episode 3, right? So that concludes episode 2. Let me start on episode 3 now, actually. Tommy is parlaying with these 2 IRA members that come into the garrison, right? And they're looking to buy guns, and they kind of look like, just hood rats. They don't, you might not take them seriously, right? But they're looking to buy these stolen guns, and these guys are drinking heavily, and one of them starts singing an IRA song, which is, not the best move to do while you're in, this Peaky Blinders bar, because there's some beef there, right? And they say they have money to pay for everything, right? And so that what happens, they leave, right? So Tommy's like, all right, get the fuck out of here. Maybe I'll follow up with you. Maybe I won't. So Grace, she keeps offering. She's like, let me help you with your business. Their accents were thick. I'm Irish. I could help translate, or all these things, right? And then Tommy, he's giving in little by little. And he says, look, all right, you know what, maybe, hey, if you can dig out a nice dress, maybe I'll take you to the races, right? How about that, right? And what he means is he's going to take her to Billy Kimber's meeting. So anyway, after that, Ada marries Freddie, right? So they do like a quick pan of a wedding. And then Grace follows one of these IRA men. And he's all fucked up, wobbling and shit. And the guy actually catches her watching, and he like presses her up against the wall, and they get into a quarrel. And Grace ends up killing him with the gun she has in her purse, right? And so that's one scene, right? She followed the IRA guy. We know that her dad was killed by an IRA member, so she's trying to get back, And she wasn't ready for that, right? She's all vomity. She's so shook by killing someone. She's like, this is too much, right? So then Tommy finds out that Ada and Freddie were married. And he says, dude, I promised Inspector Campbell that I would run them out of town, so this is fucked up now. So then Pole actually offers them Ada and Freddie 200 pounds to get out of the city, right? And Inspector Campbell, right, is really pissed at this time at Grace, right? But you can tell he kind of like is forgiving her. He has a soft spot for her because she killed that IRA member out of spite, right? Without any order to kill. So you flash forward to Freddie being at another revolution assembly with all these workers. He seems to be so committed to this communist cause that he's not willing to leave it, right? Who knows what it could be? It could be his ego. It could be, the adrenaline rush, or it could be the fact that he really does, believe in the cause, So in any case, Inspector Moss finds Tommy and says that once again, Ada will be thrown into jail if Tommy doesn't cooperate, right, and get this motherfucker out of town. So then Tommy tracks down Freddie, right? He says that whole situation where, look, I know you're just trying to be famous by being a Shelby. And he's like, dude, fuck you. I love your sister, all that. So then Tommy confronts Aunt Pole about giving Freddie and Ada that 200 pounds, But Aunt Pole is one of the few people who stand up to Tommy and were like, fuck you, dude. I was just trying to help you out. You know what I mean? Everyone else just kind of takes orders. So then Danny Whizbang comes back to Tommy's room at night and says, look, dude, I'm in London and people are saying it's the Peaky Blinders that killed that IRA man. So he's actually connected, right? And he's like, all right, Danny, tell them to send someone down to parlay and we'll talk about this. And then, so they do send someone down and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, after this, so Tommy and Grace, they're getting ready for the Cheltenham races, I believe. And Arthur and John are prepping the blinders for what's going to happen at these races, right? So this is where this big meeting is going to happen. So they're going to go to the racetrack and supposedly protect it from the Leaf family, who is like taking profits off of the bookies and whatnot. So what they do is they beat the shit out of the Lee brothers and they get all of the takings, right? And they give them to Tommy. And they go to the clubhouse. Tommy goes to the clubhouse with Grace and throws all the takings on the table and says, look, bro, this is everything the Lees were going to steal from you. I just got it back from you in one fell swoop. So you'll see this where Tommy is all about these dramatic gestures, right? He's ready to put foot to mouth, foot to ass, and show you what he can do as opposed to kind of just telling you about it, right? So him and Kimber's advisor start talking business, but Kimber is really interested in Grace at this time. They're discussing business, and then Kimber goes to dance with Grace. So they come up with a little bit of a deal, right? Tommy and the advisor to, have some legal betting rate pitches. If you're pleased with my services, here's how the rate goes up. So then they're making these deals, and Billy comes over and he's like, all right, I see you guys are getting along here. How about a side bet? Let me have an hour or a couple hours with your girl. And then we'll throw that into the mix, right? And Tommy's like, okay. And then he tells Grace, and she's kind of like, wait, what? And he's like, what, dude? Like, you said you want to be part of this, right? So in any case, Grace goes back with him, right? And Tommy says, like, dude, if you don't want to have sex with him, just fucking kick him in the balls, right? So so Billy Kimber is like about to pretty much rape Grace because she's like, dude, I don't want any part of this, right? But at the last second, Tommy comes in, is like, dude, she's got the clap, don't worry about it. Like, I just want to, I want to spare you that. So like I said, you can tell it's an early sign that Tommy kind of does like Grace, right? He doesn't want anything bad to happen to her, and he really doesn't care about anybody else. So that's how episode 3 ends, right? So we jump into episode 4, and the beginning of the episode starts with Freddy giving money to this other communist, right, to expand the communist movement, in Russia and things of that sort. Now, we flash forward to the betting shop, and the Lee family is parked right outside the Blinders betting shop. They want to, take back that money that Tommy stole from them from Cheltenham. So at this point, John calls a family meeting, and they have to leave the betting shop with just one guard there, this guy named Scudboat. So John tells the family that he is going to be marrying Lizzie. Now, Lizzie is a really nice character. She's a nice lady. She's kind of a thotty, if I'm being honest. She's kind of crazy. But her and Tommy have actually been hooking up, and she's a prostitute. She's a hoe. So that's how she makes her money, right? And they know that she's a prostitute, but John doesn't know that Tommy's been going to her, right? So John tells the family he wants to marry Lizzie. They all think it's a fucking joke, and they're all laughing about it. John's kind of pissed that they're all laughing about it. And anyway, Finn comes in and says, look, we've been done over, bro. The Lees have taken everything. They go back and they find some wire cutters there. Now, the symbolism behind those wire cutters is that in World War II, when they would give up ground to the Germans, they would leave behind booby traps, wired bombs, and they would leave wire cutters as part of the joke, right? So they're everyone's on high alert. Tommy's like, no, the bullets for me. So they wouldn't put it in here. They would set it up just for me. So he goes and finds Finn in his car, right? Because Tommy's really the only one who drives the car. And Finn jumps out of the car, sets off the bomb, but Tommy gets it in time to throw it. And it explodes in Watery Lane somewhere. And so you see that Tommy is into some serious shit, and he kind of thrives off that adrenaline, right? So, after that, Tommy goes to the Lees, and he's like, dude, we got to figure this out, right? And he tells the leader that he plans to betray Billy Kimber, so we should come together. So you find out he picked a fight with the Lees for a reason, right? And they have to unite, right? They're both gypsies on their mother's side, or on Tommy's mother's side, right? So Tommy's half a gypsy, I guess. So they come to an agreement, you can tell. So then we flash forward to another scene where Tommy says that in order for Freddy to be left alone with Ada, he gives Inspector Campbell the address of Stanley Chapman, who is the one that Freddy gave the money to at the beginning of the episode, right? So Stanley Chapman is, quote unquote, a bigger fish than Freddy Thorne is, right? So Stanley Chapman has the money, and he's working for the Russian government, the communists, right? So in exchange, Tommy asked that Inspector Campbell leave Ada and Freddy alone, right? So Inspector Campbell makes this threat to Tommy at this point, that he says, look, if I get fired before I get these guns, then I'm going to kill your whole family. I'm going to kill Ada too, and I don't care about that baby inside of her. And I'll throw Finn in the adult part of prison where, men will rape him and touch him and shit like that. So in any case, Stanley Chapman is found by Inspector Moss and Campbell, and during the interrogation, they kill him, right? They beat him to death, or he has a seizure or something. And he was asking Chapman where Freddie Thorne was, right? But they don't have that information because none of them know each other's addresses, just in case one of them gets caught. So he never had that information anyway. So Campbell betrayed Tommy, and you can tell he is not a good guy, right? He's very unethical in his methods. But since he worked for the Crown, he's like some holy guy, and there's some symbolism there too, right? So they tortured Stanley. They kill him in vain, and you can tell that Inspector Campbell's feud with Tommy is becoming very personal. And once again, Freddy is not willing to leave Birmingham. And, the Blinders, on a side note, are doing a really good job protecting all the betting pitches that Billy Kimber has, right? They're doing a really good job. So Billy Kimber ends up giving him, the legal betting pitch. And that's the first legal business that the Shelby family has ever had. So if you think about that, they've probably spent their whole family's lineage stealing and pillaging and things like that, and now they have legitimate business, right? So, and I guess it is a big deal, right? So historically, gypsies have been only involved in illegal activity, so this is or off the book work. So, and in any case, right? And one thing you'll see a lot here. When Tommy gets this pitch, he's smiling and he laughs a lot in season 1, and a lot is not high in quantity for the normal person, but this is pretty much the only season where he's laughing, right? It doesn't happen much in following seasons. So Grace starts working on Arthur, right? She realized he's simpler, and as opposed to getting information out of Tommy, she works through Arthur for majority. And he starts divulging little information about where they keep their stolen whiskey, their stolen cigarettes, and Grace gives that information to Inspector Moss, and he conducts raids on all those areas with no luck finding the guns, right? And then Tommy finally confronts Grace about all the questions that she's been asking. But he also pretty much tells her that he loves her at the same time. And at this point, you see Grace fully deceiving Tommy, but she kind of likes it, right? She's feeling him. And now she becomes like an official Peaky Blinder, not part of the family, but she's working for Tommy's business now. Tommy then approaches Lizzie, right? The one who's marrying John. And he's like, yo, let me just offer you a little bit of money, and how about one last time? Let's just do it one last time. And she's like, I've changed, I'm fully committed to John, but all right, one last time. And then that one last time is what throws her under the bus, right? He's like, I guess the past isn't the past, right? And she's pissed. She's like, you're a fucking scumbag, dude. And he's like, I am. I know it. So he tells John that. John's pissed and ends up not marrying her, right? So John's super fucking bummed out about that. And he finds out that Tommy's been, sleeping with her too. So Grace and Inspector Campbell, they debrief once more, right? They meet up at that museum, and you can tell that Campbell's a little jealous because in the way Grace is talking, you can tell she is she's feeling him a little bit. She's feeling Tommy a little bit, right? And Grace is not as repulsed by Tommy anymore because you see that Tommy does have some good to him. He has some some purity to his heart, but he just wants to rise above his class, and it's the system that's keeping him down, right? That's kind of made him this way. And he's just a product of the war and the poverty and things like that. So, and anyway, the morning comes, and the Blinders roll up to the Lee camp, right? They're fully armed, they're locked and loaded, ready for war. And they're ready for this fight. And Tommy tells them to be ready for anything. So soon enough, and this is a really good scene, John finds out that he's not there to fight. He's actually there to marry one of the Lee girls so that they can make this truce, right? So Tommy makes a lot of tough decisions for the family. And, you can see he even thinks that, he knows better than John does. And he kind of does, but he's controlling here, right? You can see that. And introduce Esme, who is John's wife, all the way through to the 4th season. They have this huge party, and Esme is very pretty, And Ada comes, and she's pissed at Tommy because Freddie's giving her so much shit because of their beef, And Ada's water actually breaks. And they have to kind of cut the wedding off early. They take her back to Birmingham. The ladies stay with Ada to birth the baby, right? And then the guys go to the garrison. And Tommy says it's okay for Freddie to come back because his baby is being born, right? So they're all getting fucked up at the bar and things like that. And the baby's there, and Grace is at the bar, and Tommy lets out that tonight's the night for for a truce, and I let Freddie come back. So she tells Inspector Campbell that Freddie came back, and he sends the cops to get him, and he's put in jail. But Aunt Pole comes into the bar and is furious with Tommy because she thinks that he told the cops to come get Freddie, right? So now they're feuding a little bit. So you can tell Grace is the root cause of many of these issues for Tommy, and he still doesn't know who gave away Freddie Thorne, right? He's like, what the fuck happened here? I wasn't me. So that ends episode 4, right? So we jump into season 5, and in the first scene here, Tommy has to what do you call? He has killed Danny Whizbang, right? A few seasons prior. But what he has to do is he has to show, right? So we know a couple of episodes earlier he killed that guy in the Italian part of town, right? Because he had that fit. So Tommy puts a gun, right, to Danny Whizbang's head, and he has to shoot him in front of the Italians so they know that he's dead. So he shoots him, right? And he, it looks like he died, fell on a boat, and then he takes him out of town, right? So, but instance later, Danny Whizbang wakes up, and Tommy just shot him with some sheep's brain, right? Tried to knock the shit out of him. So he just got his act together, So essentially, Danny's alive, right? Long story short. So Ada thinks Tommy's the reason that Freddie's in jail, and so does Polly. And Grace is working on the books, and Tommy comes in and puts a black star on the day he's going to take out Billy Kimber, right? And Grace is the only person that knows that information, right? So Tommy will test people with things like that. So he says, no one knows this. My family doesn't know this, and all whatever, right? So they're going to take him out on that day, and that's only Grace's information. So meanwhile, right, John and Arthur, they come upon this dude who's setting up a boxing ring, and they're like, yo, if you want to set up shop here, you have to pay a tax to the Blinders, right? And in that boxing ring is the brother's father. His name's Arthur Shelby as well, and he plays that dude that Irish dude from Sons of Anarchy. I forget that guy's name, but he's a good actor. So he actually plays the Peaky Blinders, or the Shelby brothers' dad. So right away, Arthur starts acting like a small child, right? Like a little puppy. He sees his dad again. He brings him back to the betting shop, makes him a sandwich and shit like that. And they're waiting for Tommy to come back. Paul is being super sarcastic because, the father left the family when they needed him, right? So that's why Tommy had to step up and take charge. So Tommy comes in. He sees he says dad right there, and he's like, get the fuck out, dude, get out right now. Not now, not right now. And Arthur's like, what? He's like, dude, he's our dad. And Tommy's like, if you want to leave, if you want to be with him, you go with him right now. Fuck that guy. And Tommy tells his dad, when this family needed you 10 years ago, you were nowhere to be found, right? And you left us. So that's that. And Arthur leaves, actually, right? So Grace is actually checking the books, right? Flash forward to another scene, and Grace is checking the books, and they see that the Blinders pay money to this dude named Danny Whizbang every week or so, right? And she's like, yo, Arthur, isn't Danny Whizbang dead? And Arthur's like, no, that was just a show for the wops, you know what I mean? Or that's what they call the Italian people, it's a derogatory term, right? And she's like, oh, okay, well then who's buried in his grave? And then he gets all quiet. And Grace knows, at that point, that's where the guns are hidden, right? So Arthur's a fucking idiot. So he pretty much might as well told her, right, that the guns are there in Danny's grave. So Arthur's dad and him, they start to get a little closer. And then, Arthur's dad tells him that, look, dude, I've been to America. Yo, we got to invest in casinos, dude. And you can tell Arthur's eyes are getting all wide. And he's like, all right, I'll give you some money. I'll be back. Just give me some time. And they're just having drunk conversations, man. Like, how many conversations, when you talk to people, you get a little turn. You, start thinking, you're fucking a Nobel Peace Prize winner, right? So Arthur's riding that wave. He's like, I'll give you some money. Let's do it. Shelby Casino. We'll do that. So, there's also a scene, right? They're like so fucked up. They're like having this like cathartic moment with each other, and they just like fight, right? They box it out, and they have this like crazy like bonding embrace after, and like testosterone type shit flying around everywhere, right? Like guy shit. So they're like bonding hard. So then you flash forward to this scene, right, with Tommy, and he there's this IRA captain that comes down to parlay about that death, of that guy from earlier, the guy that Grace shot. So they have this really nice banter, right? They're both very powerful men, and essentially the guy said he's gonna fucking kill all the Peaky Blinders if you don't give me the guns. And he's like, Tommy's like, all right, well, you know what? I'll give them to you. You just gotta pay me for them. So they set a date, right? And essentially, Tommy tells Inspector Campbell that this guy is coming down, and he's like, I'm pretty much doing your job for you. So essentially, Tommy agreed just to set this guy up, right? So that scene is going to come up later. So Arthur gives his dad 500 pounds, right? And tells his dad, look, here you go. And he's like, when do we sail, Dad? And he's like, meet me on Friday at the boxing ring. Anyway, after that, Tommy essentially rushes into the garrison, and this is where they meet the IRA guy, and they say, hey, look, this IRA man is coming now, and all I need you to do is when I say a toast or make a toast, just come out with the gun pointing, and the cops will do the rest, right? But the cops have agreed that, look, we're not barging in there. If anything happens, let them kill each other, right? So essentially, they don't intervene. So the two guys show up. Tommy gives them a map of where the guns are hidden, and then they give him the money. But the guy goes, "Did you think we're gonna let you live?" So essentially, Tommy makes a toast. Grace comes out and shoots one of the guys. But then the other guy is about to pull his gun out, and Tommy like knocks away the gun, and they start fighting, right? So whatever happens, right? They end up getting into this really gross fight. Tommy bashes him with this like platoon pot, and just like he goes into like his animal mode, and Grace is obviously shook that she killed this dude, and she like lost control, and Tommy's like, yo, you've seen me, dude. You've seen me go crazy, and they end up hugging it out. And Inspector Moss comes in and sees them hugging and shit like that. And he's like, all right, I'll leave you two lovebirds alone. And you can tell now that Tommy and Grace have like taken their relationship to the next level. So then Grace actually meets up with Inspector Campbell. She's like, yo, I don't want any part of this shit anymore. If I tell you where the guns are, will you just leave Tommy alone? So he's like, yeah, you have my word, which he breaks, right? Inspector Campbell's super shitty. So she says, look, I think they're buried in Danny Wisbang's grave. So obviously, Inspector Campbell goes and, finds them. And then meanwhile, Arthur is at the boxing ring, and he doesn't see his dad for a long time. You can tell he's been waiting there, right? So he goes to the train station, and he sees his dad there, and he's like, Dad, I thought we were going to go, to America together, right? Like a little boy. And his dad's like, oh, shit, right? So Arthur is like, yo, give me my money back. And he like pushes him, and his dad pushes him up against the wall, and he's like, dude, I'll kill you if you touch me again. And Arthur just walks away like a sad little boy, right? So then after that, Arthur is about to kill himself, right? And the thing he hangs himself on breaks right when his eyes are about to glaze over, so he stays alive, right? All the while, Inspector Campbell digs up the grave, gets the gun, asks Grace to marry him, right? He's like, since you resigned, I can ask you to marry me now. And she says no. And he's like, is it Tommy? He's like furious, and she doesn't answer and kind of walks away, right? So Tommy finds out that the guns have been, removed, and he's like, oh shit, now they're gonna come get me. So he goes to the garrison, and Grace actually ends up hiding him in her apartment, and Inspector Campbell knows to go check her apartment. He sees them kind of like hanging out, embracing each other. They're about to kiss. Tommy hooks up with her, right? And for the first time, he can sleep. He's like, I don't hear the pics on the wall anymore. I don't have those dreams. And he's like, will you help me? Just help me with life. We know each other. We'll help each other out. So Tom is sleeping like a baby, and probably the best sleep he's gotten in a while. And Grace feels shitty because she's still been lying to him, right? So that pretty much ends things at this end of episode 5. So we come to the last episode, right? And the episode starts with Inspector Campbell going to this Chinatown brothel, and he sleeps with this really young Chinese girl, but he ends up being like a little too rough with her. He like must have hit her or whatever the fuck, and she's bleeding at the end of it. So we're at the end of the season, so Black Star Day has come, right? They're going to take over Billy, and Tommy hasn't told anyone, but he just springs it on everyone, right? So he goes to pick up his suit, and he finds, because he beat Inspector Campbell hit that girl, the Chinatown brothel guy's like, yo, come here, Tommy. Inspector Campbell's back there. And then Tommy walks in on that whole situation. He's like, oh, so you just came here to sleep with the whores and not make it better, right? So in any case, still at this time, Inspector Campbell knows that Tommy and Grace are in love, but he says, by the end of the day, your heart will be broken, right? So Grace shows up at the usual meeting spot, and there's Inspector Moss, not Campbell, and he gives her a letter from Inspector Campbell. And he says whore and walks away like an asshole. So the letter pretty much tells Grace that Inspector Campbell knows everything, right, that she did with Tommy, but I won't say anything, right? And then you come upon Black Star Day, and you realize Tommy has a plan for getting Freddy out of jail, right? So when Freddy's going to be transferred to another prison, that's when Tommy's going to, intervene. So Polly tells Ada this emotional story about why she should forgive Tommy, right? So essentially, back in the day when they were poor and didn't have money or anything like that, because Aunt Pole was making a few, bottles of gin in her bathtub, they took her kids away. And she says, they'll never do that to you, Ada, because Tommy's made us strong and prominent and all this shit, right? So she says, that's why you should forgive him, right? Because he's made us strong, and they can't, fuck us around anymore. So you see, how heavily that authority has taken a toll on, the poverty-stricken, and really keeps the poor where they are, and people can't rise above their class, So in any case, Ada's moved by that story, and she knows that, Tommy's going to do the right thing or whatever, right? So come to Inspector Campbell's last briefing with Winston Churchill. And Winston Churchill goes, hey, look, there was like a lady involved, right? An undercover operative that you had. Do you think she deserves any recognition? And he's like, absolutely, bro. She deserves all the recognition. So, that's how Tommy would find out, right, about the guns being recovered, that Grace was really in the mix there, okay? So, essentially, Tommy has hired one of the coppers to, volunteer this transport job for Freddy, and then Danny Whizbang shows up with a machine gun and breaks Freddy out, right? So the Blinders are supposed to head over, right, to take over Billy Kimber. So they head over to the garrison to have a drink. Now, Tommy says that, hey, Grace, and at this point, she hasn't told him, and he doesn't know. She's like, at the next family meeting, you'll be there, right? So he's like in love with her now. Now she's sad because, right, she's lying to him, and she goes to the back, and he has this scene with her where he's like, when I come back, I'm gonna be the third largest race pitch owner in the country, and she's like, I'm not gonna be here. And he's like, dude, I can change. No, stay. Like, I'm going to get rid of some of that off-track stuff. And, he's trying to be better for her. And she's, like, so sad because she's just manipulating him, right? So then Jeremiah barges in and says, look, dude, the Kimber boys are in the lane. They've come here. So essentially, someone has tipped them off, right? They were supposed to meet the Lee brothers at the races to take him over, but someone tipped him off, and then Billy Kimber brought these huge vans full of dudes, and they're about to come, wipe out the Blinders, right? So Campbell tells Moss, "Hey, look, I know there's people coming to the city. Just don't stop them. Tell all the police officers to stand down." And Inspector Moss is like, "What?" But in any case, Tommy tries to talk to Polly and's like, "Who let this slip, dude?" And Polly's like, "Who's the only person you told?" And then Tommy realized it was Grace, right? So Polly's like, "Yo, I'll take care of Grace, and you go, just take care of what's happening now, right?" So Polly goes to confront Grace, and she has a good banter with her, right? Essentially, she's like, "Hey, so you joined the force thinking that, hey, look, we're all the same, right? Low people, communists, all, we're all the same. But then you met Tommy, and you realize he's just out, to get us above poverty, to like stop letting people like walk all over us, right?" So she knows that she fell in love with Tommy. So after that, there's only the 6 Peaky Blinders left, right? There's like the 3 brothers. There's Jeremiah, Curly, Uncle Charlie, Scudboat, Lovelock, and Jeremiah. I probably always said that. So they're like, so Tommy gives this moving speech, and then he goes and have one last drink, and he sees everyone showing up, right? So Billy Kimber shows up with like 30 men. They're outnumbered like 3-1, right? So what happens after that is essentially. They pull up, and then Freddie Thorne shows up with that machine gun, and they're ready to fight. But Ada and their baby pulls up in the middle of no man's land between the 2 groups of people, right? And she's like, "Who's going to be wearing black for you at your guys' funeral? I want you all to think about that." So Billy at that time is like, "All right, you're right. Why should everyone, die? It should just be the one that caused this." And he shoots Tommy, but actually he doesn't kill him. He shoots him like above the heart, right? So then whatever happens, Danny Wisbang rushes in. Someone shoots Danny Wisbang, and everyone's like, "Stop shooting." So Tommy comes to and shoots Billy in his head. And he goes, "All right, look, me and Billy fought this one-on-one. That's what the record should say, right? So that's it. It's over with, right? The Peaky Blinders won the day." So essentially, they go dig the bullet out of Tommy, and now Tommy is the biggest racetrack owner, right? So he goes and meets up with Grace, and Grace says, "Look, I love you, dude. I love you. Come with me to London." And Tommy's like being an asshole now, right? He's hurt. He's like, he doesn't even say, "I love you" back, nothing. He's like, there he goes, He's like, "One day I'll turn legit, but there's things to be done right now." And she's like, "All right, meet me in London then, right? When you're ready or whatever." So he goes back, and, everyone's fucked up. They're celebrating. Danny Wisbang gets buried. And there was this bottle of champagne that Grace had bought while she was working at the bar to celebrate. And Tommy busts it out at the end of the episode, and he has a toast with Aunt Paul, and finally just kind of breaks down, right? He's like, "What the fuck happened to me?" So all in all, right, the Blinders at the end of season 1 are the 3rd largest racetrack owner in the country, and they're on to bigger and better things, right? So a bit of a long-winded podcast today, but so many good symbolic points within Peaky Blinders. I highly encourage everyone to watch it. Just walk you through the first season. We'll do another one on season 2. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm rewatching the season, writing down some of the key points, the trajectory of the events, and I'm just walking it through. So I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. Feel free to leave me any feedback, and remember, only positivity. Thanks, guys.